I had built my life on routine. Mornings started at 6 sharp, coffee brewing as I stretched on my balcony, the city still half asleep beneath me. By 7, I was out the door for a run, and by 8, I was at my desk, surrounded by half-finished sketches and the smell of paint. My apartment was a world of quiet precision. Everything in its place, just the way I liked it. That's why, when the doorbell rang at nearly 10 at night, I froze, pencil hovering over my sketchpad. No one visited me this late. My neighbors knew better, and I wasn't expecting a delivery. I hesitated before opening the door, half expecting a mistake. Instead, I found Leo standing there, leaning against the frame like he belonged. His dark hoodie was damp from the drizzle outside, curls a mess, a duffel slung over one shoulder. He smelled like rain and the faint spice of cologne, and the easy smirk on his face told me this wasn't a coincidence. "Figured you wouldn't answer if I called," he said, shifting the bag higher on his shoulder. "So I came anyway." And just like that, the quiet order of my night was shattered. I stared at him, my fingers still curled around the doorknob. The city buzzed faintly in the background, cars passing, distant laughter from the bar down the street. But in that moment, all I could hear was my own pulse, steady and uncertain. Leo was the kind of person who moved through life like he was always chasing the next thrill, the next moment, never staying in one place long enough to let the dust settle. I hadn't seen him in months, and now here he was, standing at my doorstep like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You just showed up," I said. Not a question, but a statement of fact. His smirk deepened. "You always did like stating the obvious." I should have told him to leave. I should have shut the door, turned back to my sketch pad, and pretended this never happened. But instead, I exhaled, stepped back, and let him in. Leo walked past me like he'd done it 100 times before, dropping his bag by the couch and stretching his arms over his head. "Nice place," he mused, though I knew he'd been here before. Once, a long time ago, when things were different. When we were different. I closed the door, leaning against it for a second, watching him take in the space. He looked the same, and yet not. Older, maybe, a little worn around the edges, but his eyes still had that same spark, that same restless energy. "Are you going to tell me why you're here?" I asked finally. Leo turned, his gaze locking onto mine, and for the first time since I opened the door, his smirk faded just a little. "I didn't know where else to go," he admitted, and just like that, I knew. Whatever had brought him here, whatever had chased him back into my life, it wasn't something small. Chapter 2: Unfinished Conversations. I studied Leo carefully, my fingers still resting on the door handle. His words hung in the air between us, heavy and unresolved. I didn't know where else to go. That wasn't like him. Leo always had a plan, always had somewhere to be. And yet here he was, standing in my apartment like a stray cat that had finally decided to come home. I sighed and pushed off the door. "You're soaked," I muttered, moving past him toward the small closet in the hallway. I pulled out a clean towel and tossed it in his direction. He caught it easily, rubbing it over his hair before draping it around his neck. "So," I started, arms crossed, "you're just gonna show up after months and expect me to let you crash here?" Leo smirked, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I was kind of hoping you'd take pity on me." I narrowed my eyes. "Leo." He exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand down his face. "Look, I know it's late. I know I should have called, but—" His gaze flickered away for a second, like he was debating whether or not to tell me the truth. When he looked back at me, there was something raw in his expression. I didn't have time to think, all right? Something about the way he said it sent a flicker of unease through me. Leo was impulsive, but he wasn't reckless. Not like this. "What happened?" I asked. He hesitated. That was all the confirmation I needed. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a casual visit. He gestured vaguely, like the words weren't coming easily. "I just needed to get away for a bit. Lay low." I frowned. Lay low from what? His jaw tensed, and I knew I wasn't going to get a straight answer. Not yet. Instead of pressing, I sighed and turned toward the kitchen. "You hungry?" Leo blinked, caught off guard by the sudden change in conversation. "Yeah." I shook my head, opening the fridge. "You brought a pizza and didn't eat any of it?" He shrugged. "Didn't feel like it." That, more than anything, made my stomach twist. Leo not eating meant something was really wrong. I pulled out a couple of plates and set them on the counter. As I did, I felt his gaze on me, lingering in a way that made my skin prickle. He had always had this way of watching, like he saw more than he let on, like he was waiting for something. "I didn't think you'd answer the door," he admitted suddenly. I paused, looking at him. I almost didn't. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Yeah, that would have been fair. We didn't talk about the last time we saw each other. We didn't talk about the fight, the sharp words exchanged in the heat of the moment, the way he walked out and didn't look back. I thought that was it, that we were done. But now he was here. And something told me he wasn't planning on leaving anytime soon. Chapter 3. The Storm That Follows. I let him stay. I told myself it was temporary, just one night, just until he figured out whatever mess he'd gotten himself into. But when morning came, Leo was still there. I found him on the couch, sprawled out like he belonged there, one arm draped over his eyes. His duffel bag was still by the door, untouched. For a moment, I just stood there watching him. He looked different when he slept. Less guarded, less like the whirlwind that always threatened to pull me in. The city hummed softly outside, and I thought about how easy it would be to pretend this was normal, that he belonged here, that things hadn't changed, except they had. I cleared my throat, and Leo stirred, blinking up at me. "Morning," he mumbled, voice thick with sleep. "You're still here." He smirked, stretching his arms over his head. "Good morning to you, too." I exhaled, rubbing my temples. "Leo, look, I know what you're going to say." He sat up, raking a hand through his already messy hair. "And I'll go. I just need another day, maybe 2. I studied him. The way his shoulders tensed, the way his fingers drummed against his knee, he was waiting for me to say no, to shut him out. Instead, I sighed. "Fine." His head snapped up, surprised. 2 days. That's it. A slow smile crept across his face. "You're the best, you know that?" "Don't push it." I muttered, turning toward the kitchen. But as I poured my coffee, I couldn't shake the feeling that letting him stay was a mistake. Because Leo never showed up without a reason, and whatever had brought him here, whatever he was running from, I had a sinking feeling that it was about to drag me down with him. Chapter 4. Ghosts of Yesterday. The next 2 days passed in a strange, quiet rhythm. Leo slipped into my routine like he had always been part of it, stealing sips of my coffee, flipping through my sketchbooks without permission, tossing casual remarks over his shoulder like we hadn't spent months avoiding each other. He didn't talk about why he was here, and I didn't ask. Not directly. But the signs were there. The way he checked his phone and frowned at the screen, fingers tightening around it before setting it down face first. The way his shoulders tensed whenever a car passed too slowly outside. The way he stayed close, hovering near me like he was waiting for something to happen. I should have asked. Maybe I was afraid of the answer. Instead, I let it go, convincing myself that whatever storm Leo was running from would pass. Until the knock came. It was late. Too late for deliveries. Too late for neighbors. My pulse stuttered as I met Leo's gaze. He had gone still, the easy energy he carried vanishing in an instant. Another knock. Harder this time. Leo stood, jaw tight. "Don't answer it." "Leo, don't." That single word, low and edged with something I couldn't place, was enough to stop me in my tracks. A shadow moved behind the frosted glass of the door. "Leo, open up," a voice called. Male. Familiar, though I couldn't place it. I turned back to Leo, who had gone pale, his hands clenched at his sides. That was the moment I knew. Whatever he was hiding, whatever had sent him here, wasn't just in his head. It was standing outside my door. Chapter 5. What We Leave Behind. I had never seen Leo scared before. Not like this. For a second, we just stood there, neither of us moving. Then, like a switch flipped, Leo grabbed my wrist and pulled me back, shaking his head. "I'll handle it," he muttered, voice tight. "Just stay here." But that wasn't how this worked. Not anymore. I shook him off, crossing my arms. "Either you tell me what's going on, or I open that door myself." He cursed under his breath, running a hand through his hair. The knocking came again, louder this time, followed by a sharp sigh from the other side. "For God's sake, Leo. I know you're in there." Leo exhaled sharply. He hesitated. "It's Owen." The name hit me like a weight. Owen. The guy Leo used to run with. The one I had told him over and over was trouble. Leo dragged a hand down his face. He's not supposed to be here. But he was, and judging by the tone of his voice, he wasn't leaving anytime soon. I took a step toward the door, but Leo caught my wrist again, this time more gently. "Please," he murmured. "Just let me handle it." There was something raw in his expression, something almost pleading. I hesitated, but eventually I nodded. Leo swallowed, then squared his shoulders and opened the door. Owen stood there, looking just as I remembered. Sharp features, a cocky smirk that didn't quite reach his eyes. His gaze flicked past Leo to me, curiosity flashing across his face before he turned back to Leo. "You're hard to track down, man," Owen said, tone casual but laced with something else. Leo leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "Maybe I didn't want to be found." Owen chuckled. "Yeah, I got that. But disappearing like that, no warning, that's not how this works." Leo stiffened, and I saw it then. The way his fingers twitched, the way his weight shifted like he was preparing for something. Owen sighed dramatically, shoving his hands into his pockets. "Look, I'm not here to make this difficult. You know how things go, Leo, how you walk away. You don't just get to pretend none of it happened." A muscle in Leo's jaw twitched. "I am walking away," he said, voice low. "I already did." Owen studied him for a long moment. Then, to my surprise, he smirked. "All right," he said, "I'll tell them you're out." Leo didn't move. Owen turned to go, then paused, glancing at me once more. "Nice place you got here." I didn't respond. Then, just as suddenly as he had arrived, he was gone. Leo closed the door and let out a breath, running a hand through his hair. I crossed my arms. "Are you going to tell me what that was about now?" He looked at me, exhausted but relieved. I was involved with something. Something I shouldn't have been. I wanted out, but I didn't know if they'd let me walk away. I frowned. "And now?" He hesitated, then let out a small, breathless laugh. "I think I'm finally free." The weight in my chest eased. I wanted to be mad at him for dragging me into this. But more than that, I was just glad he was here. "You could have told me," I muttered. Leo smiled, the first real one since he arrived. "Yeah." "I know." I sighed, shaking my head. "So what now?" He stretched, smirking. "I don't know. I was thinking, maybe I stick around for a bit." I rolled my eyes, but I didn't argue, because despite everything, despite all the chaos Leo always seemed to bring, a part of me had already decided he wasn't going anywhere. Not this time. Chapter 6. Things Left Unsaid. The apartment felt different after Owen left, like the air had shifted, like the weight Leo had been carrying had finally started to lift. But I could still feel the tension in him, the way his shoulders stayed rigid, the way his fingers tapped absently against his knee as he sat on my couch, staring at nothing. I watched him from the kitchen, pretending to busy myself with the dishes. He had barely said a word since Owen walked away, but I could tell he wasn't fine. So I did what I always did. I made tea. When I set the mug down in front of him, he blinked, like he hadn't even realized I was there. He glanced at the tea, then up at me. "You remembered," he murmured. I rolled my eyes. "It's just tea, Leo." "No," he smiled, small but real this time. "It's my tea, the kind I always used to drink when I stayed over." I didn't respond, just sat down across from him, watching as he curled his fingers around the warm mug. For a while, we sat in comfortable silence, the steam curling between us. Then quietly, Leo spoke. "You know, I wasn't lying when I said I didn't know where else to go." I glanced at him, but he wasn't looking at me. His gaze was fixed on the tea, like it held answers he hadn't figured out yet. "I had places I could have gone," he continued. "Other friends, old haunts, but none of them felt safe." His fingers tapped against the ceramic. "Except you." Something in my chest tightened. I opened my mouth, but before I could say anything, Leo finally looked at me. "I know I'm a mess," he admitted, his voice quieter now. "I know I dragged you into something you didn't ask for, but you still let me in. You always let me in." I swallowed hard. "Maybe that's a mistake." Leo smirked, but there was no bite to it. "Maybe," then softer. "But I don't think it is." I wanted to argue, to remind him of all the times he had disappeared without a word. But then I remembered how he had looked at Owen at the door, how he had shielded me, how his first instinct had been to keep me safe. Leo had always been reckless, but when it came to me, he was careful. And that scared me more than anything. Chapter 7. Staying Still. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. For a moment, I thought I had imagined it. Leo never woke up before me. But then I heard quiet footsteps in the kitchen, the soft clink of a spoon against ceramic. I pushed myself out of bed, rubbing the sleep from my eyes as I walked toward the doorway. And there he was. Leo stood by the window, a steaming mug in his hands, the morning light catching in his tousled hair. He looked peaceful in a way I hadn't seen before, like, for once, he wasn't running from something. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. "You made coffee?" Leo turned, a slow smirk curling his lips. "What, you think I don't know how?" "I think you never stay in one place long enough to bother." He chuckled, but there was something softer behind it. Maybe I finally found a place worth staying for. The words sent a ripple through me, subtle but undeniable. I swallowed, stepping closer. "And where would that be?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for the extra mug on the counter and held it out to me. When I took it, his fingers brushed against mine, lingering for just a second too long. Leo watched me as I took a sip, and I realized then that his expression wasn't teasing. It was careful, searching. Like he was waiting for me to push him away. I set the mug down, tilting my head at him. "You never did tell me why you really came here." Leo exhaled, setting his own cup aside. He hesitated, then finally said, "Because I knew you'd open the door." My breath caught. "I knew you'd let me in," he continued, voice quieter now. "Even if you were mad, even if I didn't deserve it. Because you always do." I looked at him, at the way he stood just close enough for me to feel the warmth of him. He wasn't making a move, wasn't pushing, but he was there, waiting. I set my coffee down and took a step closer. His breath hitched. "I don't just let anyone in, you know," I murmured. Leo's lips parted slightly, his gaze flicking to mine. "I know." I hesitated for only a second before reaching up, fingers grazing the side of his face. He leaned into the touch instinctively, his eyes fluttering shut for half a second before opening again, hazy and warm. "Leo," I whispered. He swallowed hard. "Yeah?" I didn't say anything else. I didn't have to. Instead, I closed the distance between us. His breath caught the moment our lips met, but then his hands were on my waist, pulling me closer like he had been waiting for this, hoping for it. He kissed me slow, careful, like he was afraid I'd disappear if he held on too tightly. But I wasn't going anywhere. When we finally pulled apart, Leo let out a breathless laugh, resting his forehead against mine. "So," he murmured, voice still a little dazed, "is this the part where you tell me to get lost?" I rolled my eyes, but my lips were already curling into a smile. "No, idiot. This is the part where I tell you to stay." Leo grinned, pulling me in again, and this time, he kissed me like he knew exactly where he belonged.